Morning, Jess FM. Welcome to Journey to Self. Um, we're having a little technical difficulty this morning on Facebook Live. It seems to only want to work in the upright position, and I have Mandy here in the studio with me, and so we have a shoulder-to-shoulder view with no faces. So, anywho, I just feel awkward, like leaning over, like I'm. Like,
don't worry about it.
Reading
I'm
what
cut
you're
off
doing.
on mine every time.
Yeah. So, Journey to Self, Monday morning. Yep, that's where we're at. I'm getting present in my body. The Facebook Live has always worked for me in the other position, so my my ability to adjust and work with what I have this morning is really slow and not really working out for me. I woke up this morning really aware of really aware of myself and my body and my process and things moving and shifting, and I am on the cusp of a huge release, shift, something is happening inside of me, that I don't necessarily have all the words for, but I have like all sorts of feelings for, so like physical feelings and feelings and symptoms and lots of things moving. So Journey to Self today is going to include Magic Monday because that feels right. So I brought Mandy to do our life, do our reality, do our Magic Monday discussion. So welcome to Monday. I hope it's magic.
It's so funny how days of the week have shifted in my world. So as I've chosen to mindfully create my world in a way that's meaningful for me, I don't necessarily follow a Monday to Friday schedule, and I do because kids follow that schedule by nature. My children are schooled. Yeah. My children are in the public school system, and so there is a Monday to Friday shift, but there's so many days of my life that I'm like, this feels like a Sunday, and it's a Thursday, and I don't know what that is or what the relevance is this morning, but it is. It's like there's that routine or that rigid structure of what used to be. It just isn't my reality anymore. Turn the microphone on.
Oh, geez Louise. So, Jess FM, good morning.
Both of them, side by side.
Our microphones have been all the way down, so you have no idea what we're doing this morning.
Button too.
No, the button's
No,
good.
the second button.
Oh, geez Louise.
There we go. Welcome.
Holy Hannah, welcome to Jess FM. It's Monday. So, we've been talking for 5 whole minutes, and I didn't turn the microphones up. So, that actually falls in line, I think, with my morning. I'm fully present, and I have no interest in structure or holding myself into to anything. I just want to be.
Well, and I think the typical story, we were just discussing that you couldn't hear because because our mics were off. There's a metaphor in that as well. But like a typical Monday would, the stories about Mondays are that they're discombobulating and they're like readjusting into another world and you can't quite get it right, or the computers don't work the way they're supposed to, or it's a gripe to get into work through the traffic or things like that. And what we were discussing here before when you couldn't hear had to do with like this memory I carry in my body of what Monday to Friday looks like and feels like, and that I don't live my life in that rigid way anymore, and so some Thursdays feel like Sundays, and it's there's no guideposts, like they're gone. When you step outside of the system and the way that it's typically done in that Monday to Friday calendar view, there's so I just my body readjusts, and then those rules don't hold the same. There was somewhere else I was going with that, but there's no when you live a life from breath to breath, moment to moment, there's no guideposts outside of you to say you should be doing A, B, or C. There's nobody telling me. There might be actually people telling me what to do, but I'm not listening. I'm actually just choosing that for myself. And so just because it's quote unquote Monday doesn't mean I engage a certain pattern of behavior.
Good morning, Christina.
Morning. So yeah, what a great reminder this morning. What a great reminder. And sometimes when I choose to be fully in my body and just be present to what's moving and live my life from there, I miss details. I never missed details for the first 30 years of my life. I was on the ball. I had a schedule. I had a schedule for a schedule. I was 15 minutes early for absolutely everything I ever went to. I overplanned, overmanaged, overcontrolled, and a lot of that has gone out the window. So you're lucky I showed up not in my pajamas some days. You're lucky I showed up. And sometimes I choose not to. So it's interesting. So we're doing Magic Mondays. Okay, I'm just going to roll with this because we're doing Magic Mondays. And we didn't give any thought to the day, I don't think, other than Monday is what worked for our...
And I like alliteration.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Magic can't go with any other
Magic
day
Thursdays doesn't have the same ring, right?
We'll try it. We'll give it a whirl. See if it's magical.
But I love that we've chosen to intentionally bring attention to our own magical selves on a Monday, when traditionally that's the day we feel discombobulated and are adjusting from one reality to the other, which quite frankly has been the theme of our lives for the last week of this transitionary period where things aren't linear and they don't always map, and there's so many shifts going on in our bodies that we don't know content for.
Yeah.
So welcome to Jess FM. You can hear us. Yeah.
Sorry. Everything happens for a reason. That's my fallback.
It does.
I was driving here this morning thinking if I were maybe old Bobbi or any other human, I would have stayed away from the radio today. I would have stayed away from people and holed up in my bed and pulled up the covers today because I'm in that space that's so in flux that I should, and I'm air quoting, stay home because there's so much moving inside of me. I don't even know what side of me is up, and I really don't care. And so my thoughts to myself were Journey to Self and Magic Monday is all about raw and real and in the moment. And in this raw, real moment, I just feel raw and shaky. And maybe it's too much coffee, but I don't think so. I could tell myself that. Just really emotional. I'm on day 30 of my cycle. And I keep telling myself, I really wish my period would start so I could have a blood honoring day and just call it quits. And so my reality is today I am doing only the parts of my day that I want to do, and the rest of the time I'm just honoring me, whether or not I'm physically bleeding, because I don't give a care. And I just want to honor where I'm at. So do the parts that feel magical and not do the parts that don't feel magical. So if I don't respond to you on Facebook today, it's because I'm probably not there other than this live moment. Or whatever it is in each given moment. I give myself permission today to come and go in my own psyche as much as I want to, whatever that looks like. So there will be parts where I am cocooned in my little nest, just
And feel free to stop by and do her dishes for her, because I don't think that's going to get done today.
I did them last night
Oh.
before I went to bed because I knew that I just want to do nothing. I just want to be with my kids. Actually, in the shower this morning, I turned this Magical Mom Day too, because I feel like I have been, I was saying to Mandy before we started, I've just been angry. There's just been something that's shifting inside my body, and I've been like really in the anger and the irritation and the frustration and just I'm probably very certain not very nice to be around. So I just want to I can feel the shift into the softening, the regeneration, the going inward, and I just want to honor that with soft, gentle, fun mom activities, whatever that means, moment to moment.
Have we talked about permission? I know we've talked about permission, but have we officially for Magic Mondays? I actually don't have any recollection of what we've ever discussed.
So if it's coming up,
it is coming up.
Clearly are supposed to be talking about permission.
Oh, I had this moment of calibration for, oh man, they're going to have to listen to us talk about this again. Honoring themselves, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, my show is called Journey to Self. My whole life is geared towards honoring myself.
Yes, I think, yes, those are interchangeable titles for the show for sure. And Magic Mondays encapsulates that as well. It's like giving ourselves permission to roll around in the magic that we are and the magic that we create. And sometimes, I'll tell you, magic looks like a big pile of dog poo. It's not always sparkly and unicorns. Like sometimes it's intense, and I was just sitting here thinking, gosh, you hide your anger so well. I don't know that I've ever seen or felt something from you that I would have said as anger or rage.
And I don't think that that's a skill, right? In terms of skills, I think it's absolutely terrible. And I see it. The more and more present I stay to my body, I can feel it. I can feel it twitching. I can feel it tingling. I can feel it zipping and ricocheting through my body off different things, causing different physical symptoms.
Yeah.
And I'm certain it's not good. Good.
Well, it's necessary and settling into it. So giving yourself permission to recognize it, and then permission to make space for it, and then permission to not have to react to it, control it, tap it down, but create space and soften. And we all have choice. It's a choice point. Every sensation for my life, every sensation, every feeling, every emotion, what people call emotions, every time my shoulder hurts, my knee aches, my whatever, it becomes an invitation for me to give myself permission to stop, soften, breathe, and not know what it is. Because so often my life has been, especially as a mother and as a woman and as a partner, has been steeped in action and reaction. And this is happening, so jump into that mode, throw your cape on, and do something. So to just soften and allow myself to have permission to not fix or change. Like, I don't think what we're speaking of is like, oh, my shoulder's aching, I need to fix that. It's like, no, I notice you, I feel you, I know you're here, you're trying to say something, and I'm going to give you the space to do so.
Yes.
That's the radical shift in mindset, when you know that you're a quantum biological being, when you know that you're more than just this tissue, and the tissue is actually just an opportunity to sense and feel sensation, because if we were just the energetic beings we wouldn't feel that. But we wear this physical device, we wear this tissue for a reason.
Yeah. And this tissue is constantly talking to you. And so a lot of my last few weeks is just staying present to what's moving through me, and the recognition that we are not taught that. We are taught to take our list of symptoms and take them to someone else and give it to them so that they can fix us. And fixing looks like a Band-Aid so that we can stop the symptom, so that we are flatlined again and just moving along with our life. And so
whether it's medication, whether it's psychological strategies for changing your mind, or it doesn't just have to be a physical, putting a Band-Aid, for example, on something. But there's a lot of ways we're tapped down. There's a lot of ways we medicate. And I use the term medication not just from pharmaceuticals, but It could be sex, drugs, or rock and roll. It could be shopping.
It could be Facebook.
It could be Facebook.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It could be eyelashes and nails and boobs and whatever else it is that we distract ourselves with in order to not feel fully our lives.
Yeah, all of the above for some.
I think the presupposition is the moment I feel I should have to do something about it to stop it. Like somewhere along the lines I was taught that this flat line, this like straight, linear, flaccid experience of life, I said flaccid, yes I did, was the norm. Like that's what we're trying to achieve. So if I feel too happy, you need to bring her down. If I feel too sad, you need to bring it up.
Yes.
If I feel too angry, I need to regulate that. And that's not what I'm speaking of. It's fully alive. And fully alive means sometimes I want to rip somebody's face off. I know that's about me, but I still have that surge of adrenaline and intensity.
Yeah. And I can feel that inside of my body. Even like, so the pings from the conversation and the pings from like impulse and like the surges and staying present to it, because these things are always happening inside of our body, inside of my body. I'm just going to speak for me, inside of my body, and I recognize them now like I never did before. I would have told a story about how this is happening and this is happening because this happened, and now it's like maybe I don't really need to know. I just need to feel it. I just need to soften. And I come back to, if this is the way that we lived our lives, and we just presented with what we were feeling without putting on that, I'm good, I got it all together, don't worry, oh no thank you, please don't come over and help me, because then if I like were to cry or be angry, what would I do? And that I can feel that inside of me, and it's like, no, please come over so I can like lose my shit all over. So I can lose it all over the floor, and then I can't put it back the same way.
No.
If you witness me and my fully alive experience, I can't put it back in the box and dust it back in nicely and pretend tomorrow that everything is put together. And that's my realness. That's what I am creating. That's what I am calling forward. Hopefully more beauty than mess necessarily to clean up, but like the village. I want the village. I want the village that will show up when I am a mess and just kind of do life maybe around me. If I'm just in a big pool of mushy goo on the floor, maybe coddle me, maybe cuddle me, maybe bring me some soup, and maybe just play with my kids and pick up where I can't pick up right now. And if I'm like so excited I need to tell you this story really loud, let me do it. Let me stay in my energy. Let me be as big and bold and loud and bright and messy and cryy and emotional as I need to be, without trying to fix me or shush me or sweep me back into that box. Just I am calling in the village that can stay true to their own experience, know their life is about them, and stay present with me while I'm processing mine, and so many other things that will be further announced.
Oh, okay.
Please submit your resume.
I love it. So we had a viewer on Facebook share the word prevention, and I just need to address that for myself, because I can feel a hick in hick. I don't know what a hick is. A hiccup? I can feel a trigger inside of me around this word of prevention. I think what it was intended for was like looking at things ahead of time until you get, instead of being more proactive, as opposed to, falling off the rails and being totally overwhelmed over and over, which I've been privy to for 30 plus years in my world. But the word prevent is like, it's a stopping word for me. It's I need to stop that emotion before it happens. And that I want to be really clear for myself is, and what I'm speaking of. prevention and trying to get ahead of the game, because that's probably better language for how I lived, is always trying to stay 1 or 10 steps ahead of anything, any disaster, any chaos, any drama, and that's an exhausting place to be and way to be in my world. So when I think about honoring myself, when I think about stopping and being mindful and choosing with what feels right and true and real for me in any given moment, that feels like there's no work attached to that. There's no like I have to come up with a plan to prevent or like do enough yoga or enough relaxation away from my children that I don't get to the point of being angry. That's calibration the same as it used to be. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in knowing that this right now is the only life I have is this breath. And this breath and this breath. And then honoring what is true and real in that moment for me rather than doing something with an outcome. Everything that I've ever done, ever, no exception, anything I've ever done with a calibration for something at the other end of it has brought me nothing but work and dis-ease and disharmony, and it's always been ugly, period. If I can stay true to my intention, hear my intention, know what is important and real for me, and just live breath to breath from there, everything works out on the other end. There's never a question of that. But to try and manage and manipulate around the corners and just manage all of that feels like work. And that's different than living breath to breath. I don't want to prevent my life from happening to me. And my life is tears and snot and rage and happiness and joy and grief and sorrow and everything wrapped into one. It's less about toning that down and more about fully living in that without having to do anything on the other end. Which is what I heard in your words just now, like just letting, the village isn't people who are going to give you Kleenex and tell you to wipe your tears and tell you a good story to lift your spirits up.
Oh my God, or make me laugh. You want a junk punch real fast?
Oh man, I'm sure I'm guilty of that.
No, I don't think so. Well, I haven't recognized it in wanting to junk punch you. Just let me have my moment, whatever it is. I've had the conversation with my partner many times, like, and other people, external people in my life, giving me this experience where they're yelling and they're all fired up, and I'm like, and my partner will be like, stop yelling at me, or I'll be like, stop yelling at me. I'm not yelling at me. I'm not yelling at him. I'm yelling because I'm either really excited about something or I'm really passionate about it, and it comes out at this level, and it's just like, oh my God. And then, just stay with me. Try and stay with me. I mean, I've been guilty of just being like, stop yelling at me. Like, oh my God, you're going to have to put yourself in a smaller box because I can't handle you right now.
And if you use that language, it would be clearer, right?
Yeah. And it can become quite messy when, you rise to their level and it's like, and then it just becomes this other thing. And I'm so aware, so bringing it back to the physical, like I am so aware of the places and spaces in my body in which I hold my attention. And like I was saying, I've shifted into regeneration phase, which typically means my body temperature goes up a little bit. But I'm still doing something outside of my comfort zone. So my hands are still like really cold. So I have like that cold sweat thing going on. And it's really mighty uncomfortable. So welcome to Raw and Real, and I'm sweaty and gross.
Yes, Magic Mondays on Jess FM with Bobbi and Mandy. There will be no stone unturned.
No, not usually. So I was really aware of the presence of my mother this morning in my shower, which I realize how that actually sounds when you say it out loud. My mother was not in my shower. Let's clear that up. My mother passed in 2004, so her presence in my shower, and just the fact that she's hanging out, she's really close, she's if I were to tell a story about it, I would say she's stepped in for the remainder of this shift whatever this is, whatever is moving for me. So in the last week or 2 weeks or so, I've felt a real big flare up of some old symptoms in my body, and the way that it moves and the way that it responds. And so again, I could respond with the medical model and go with my list of symptoms and go be treated or fixed or band-aided or drugged or all of those things. But I choose to just stay present and talk to myself a lot, and the people in my life that are part of my healing team and stuff like that, and just stay really aware. And so just feeling the shift through my body. I don't want to go through like a list of symptoms. That doesn't feel meaningful right now, but just enough to say that it used to be really here centered, and now I feel it like shifting down, and different parts unwinding and kind of shifting this way, if you will, for this outlook. And the beauty of it, the messiness of it, the discomfort of it, the spaces and places where the fear can automatically shift in, the doubt, the what ifs. I was raised to what if the heck out of everything. And so I'm really working on unprogramming that. And we talked a little bit, I was going to say on the weekend, but it wasn't the weekend, but since we already established we have no concept of days, it was during our sleepover party, about the program running, I'm stuffy again, running in the back of the computer. And so for me, really staying present to which programs are still on. So in this moment, I'm going to refer to them as apps.
Yes.
So, the calibration for the viewers app, the calibration for the medical model app, the God Force knowing app, the whatever.
I like
right?
that.
Like, and so I can feel it. Like when you're talking, I can feel the like hum of like maybe the response or the whatever, and just energy leaks. Just the aware of the energy leaks and how, whatever visual I need to do that. So last week it was just dropping from my head into my heart, and it's amazing how often even I forget that one in like moment to moment living. And the beauty of it is whenever I remember, it's accessible to me. And it's just such a subtle yet profound shift. And I always distract the heck out of myself when I do it, because it's like this whole other like settled way of being. So my apps are no longer so present. But what I was saying in my jazz state of like 100 apps running is like whatever visual you need to like shut that one down, shut that one down, shut that one, and just bring it back. Because I don't know how many times I've said this in the last little bit. This is all that matters. This right here. What's going, and it's actually amazing how many conversations I have with myself, and I guess those would be little apps too, because I was thinking about trauma. And trauma doesn't matter the trauma, it matters our perception of it. So you and I could have had the same trauma, and it manifests totally differently in each one of us. And so the realization, as I was thinking about the things zipping and zanging and tingling and tensing through my body, I like to think on its way out, and like the ricochet, the pinball effect, like, so this shifted, so now it's like zip, 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 zip. So, and I referred to it as feeling my body healing, I like that rhymes, on a cellular level, and that being what I feel. So the tingles and the zips and the zaps and the random tension and the letting go, that is healing on a cellular level to me. And so the recognition that trauma is trauma is trauma, and perception is perception is perception. And so stay with yourself and don't judge yourself, and whatever that feels like to you is what that feels like to you. So it doesn't matter if I'm explaining my process to you and you don't get that.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's what it was for me. And that's huge. And my sister and I have had the conversation about her childhood, and I'll say something, and she's like, "What are you even talking about? That never happened." And I'm like, "That totally happened." And then she'll make the joke of, "Oh, you must have grown up in a different house," but it happened.
But you did.
Exactly.
Right? Your parents were different with you than they were with her.
And my experience of the exact same experience was completely different. And so the way that I carried that moving forward in my cellular body, in my whatever, is completely different. So instead of arguing my point or trying to make myself right or this is my experience.
Yeah. And if we know ourselves as whole and unique and essential to our world, not to be fixed, if we know that everything, no exception that moves through us belongs to us and is ours, then we don't need to argue points for other people. Like, yes to all of that.
And what a waste of energy.
Why would I want to? So what I've discovered very, very recently in a couple of relationships that I have is we reach the point in a conversation where we just see things so absolutely different. And I can honor my perception of that. And I can honor the other's perception in that. But there is literally nowhere to go if you aren't willing to set your story aside and then go, okay, so we just don't see it the same way. How do we move forward? If the other person isn't willing to do that, then there's not a lot of place to go. Because I don't want to argue and provide evidence and proof that what you're doing is wrong or saying is wrong. That doesn't hold meaning for me. Holding each of us with a deep sense of respect, integrity, and generosity of spirit, each of our experiences, although I don't agree with you, I don't have to agree with you for us to move forward, and you don't have to agree with me. And I think that's a foundation of a generational, well worn out pattern in our human history, in how we engage, and it's not good. I want to come back to your apps. I love that. So I've always thought of it as software, like my body is a computer, and then the software, the apps that you speak of, are the ideas and stories and different environments, that I engage in, and I engage in different ways. Not so much anymore, but I used to. And then that's running in the background. There's this hypervigilance on my computer system, and there's a burnout on it. So I want to come back to it from the perception of this last week. My husband ordered us new phones, and so we got an upgrade, air quote, upgrade. And my process of upgrading this phone was that all of a sudden yesterday I realized that I have 35 more gigs available on my new phone than I did my old phone, yet they had the same capacity. So I have so much more capacity and space left on this phone, and I have no idea why, because everything that I need on that phone is on that phone. So I felt that way about the old phone, and here we are. So there's this metaphor.
So much more capacity.
I have so much more capacity. I'm not at the end of my gigage. I've actually totally freed up space. So I'm curious now with this conversation. I don't need to know what I've let go of at all. But what I recognize is that I freed up 35 gigs of crap that clearly I didn't need in my life. And how freeing that is. I'm not worried I'm right at the edge and what's going to happen if I push myself over. I recognize in this moment that I've leaped somewhere and I have all sorts of capacity I didn't even realize I had. And it isn't until I let go of the old that I realize how much more capacity I have, instead of carrying those apps around like a dead horse. So, metaphorically, physically, totally in my reality, I appreciate that.
And if this were a movie, a cheesy one, it would open up and be like, ah!
I was thinking about, I don't know if you guys have seen the Emoji Movie, which, by the way, was probably a waste of my life, but I went to see it with my kids. And the emojis like pop up. So I think about these colorful apps, and it's like close them down, close them down. What the hell's that one back there? I haven't even looked at that in 20 years. Why is it still draining my energy?
Yes.
Okay, I need to acknowledge it's still hanging here, and then I need to just intentionally and mindfully close it down. That's a brilliant
like a
analogy.
Whole day activity. Mindfully closing apps, people. We're gonna do that. I can feel them. I can feel the strings attached to the apps.
Yes.
Way back there. That have followed me into this lifetime even. And I yes, that's a great analogy for how I feel today. I just feel like everyone wants something from me. And I'm like, well,
I don't think you can even begin to notice that you have all these apps running unless you stop and you take a break. And I don't mean like go on a vacation. Maybe that's what it is. But in this moment, in this breath, in this recognition that you need to just power down and not give to anything other than yourself today. In that recognition, you will now have space and capacity and the mindfulness to start looking around and going, what's draining me? Oh yeah, that doesn't work. I'm not doing that. And maybe it's an event you were supposed to go to. Maybe it was a tea date you had planned. Maybe it was you said you'd bake your neighbor some bread or whatever it is. But you get to choose and reevaluate. And here's the magic of all of this, people. I promise you that as you start to reevaluate breath to breath and moment to moment, not only do people not get a say in it because my life's about me and yours is about you, but what you fear that they're going to crap all over you is less likely to happen than what you actually think. When you start choosing you, and that becomes a pattern way, we no longer create other people doubting us and telling us what to do. And those that stick around, there's something in that for you. Those who still dance that way. But you get to choose who you dance with. You get to choose how you dance, where the dance floor is. If it's a dance floor, what songs you get to pick,
and when it ends. Go home.
Ask yourself, how long have I been dancing with this? Is it still meaningful for me? Oh, well, she's my aunt, my grandma, my mom, my sister, no, that's not what I'm asking. Mm-hmm. Is it meaningful? Does it light you up to interact? Is there something in it for you? And I'm not suggesting you cut everybody out of your life, but maybe to stop maybe you do, but to stop and actually give yourself permission. Inside your head, nobody's going to know you were thinking bad about them. To take a breath and engage and see the genius in your interactions with that other. Understand what it is for you, what it has served in the past, what you have access to when you are dancing with that person. And then ask yourself, does it serve who I'm becoming? As I move forward, is it meaningful to get a phone call every week for somebody to tell me how I'm doing everything wrong? Because I think that's pretty... I know a lot of relationships in my life were based in that. Where somebody else gets to say, you know what the problem with you is, like we were talking about.
Yeah, and the brilliance of the places and spaces in which I have willingly dialed their number.
Yes.
So that they could properly
crap
shame
all over
me
you.
or, tell me I'm wrong or stupid. And then I'm like, okay, thank you. Yeah, you just affirmed what I was thinking, and I put down the phone. And
then you get to feel like a big bag of...
And so I have actually recognized, yay me, the spots in which I do that, and I haven't made the phone call. No, thank you. I don't need to be shamed. I'm a grown-up some days. And some days I'm not. And some days I am my inner child stuck in this older body and thinking... What the heck happened?
Nobody gets a vote in my life anymore. I'm not a democracy. I've been taking these pieces back into my basket. I'm filling my own basket. And sometimes I'll share with you. And that doesn't mean you get all my basket. It doesn't mean you even get an opinion about what's in my basket.
And it's not a big FU. Sometimes it is.
Yep.
Sometimes it really is a big giant one.
Yeah.
But most of the time it's just me reclaiming my life, taking back the little pieces and recognizing where I've given my power away and where my running apps and energy leaks are, and just closing them off for my own self-preservation. So if that feels like a big FU to you, I welcome you to see what's on inside of you and what apps you have running and close some of them down, because I am really, moment to moment, doing what's best for me. And I'm not sorry for that.
No.
And I won't be sorry for that.
I saw something on Facebook last night. I didn't even fully read it, but it was like, don't apologize ever. Or like, you don't have to apologize for how you're feeling, or something along those lines. And I thought, yeah, why is that not? I know why it's not understood. That's not a useful question or curiosity, but you don't have to. How many people show up late and they apologize, or they do something that they perceive as put you out? My answer now is, you don't have to apologize ever. You're exactly where you need to be. If you're grouchy, teary, whatever it is, you're exactly where you need to be. Please don't apologize to me.
Yeah. And please don't try and be what you're not. So when clients come and sit in my chair, it's heavy stuff sometimes. And I see so many of them trying to keep their poop in a group in their tight little box. And I just say, let it go. Like, what are you here for if not to let it go? Please don't try and pretend that everything's okay or that you're not shifting, because I'm working really hard to help you shift here. So let it go. Let it flow. Let it, like, good grief. And so for me, I feel in my body today that the emotion, all of the emotion is like right here. So like one tip this way and we're going to have tears. One tip this way and I'm going to yell at you for something. You know, like not you specifically, but and so, and that's what I meant in terms of, you know, most people would stay home because it's just too close. And for me, I want to keep having the conversations even if you can't understand me because I'm crying so hard. I will pause and try and finish my sentence when I'm done. I want to stay when my voice is like that you know, that feeling. And like honor it and be with it. And because the one thing I realized this morning is I'm still struggling with this anger cycle in terms of recognizing it as something. Okay, so I recognize it in my body. I can feel that I'm being nasty, but I still don't think of it as a way to heal.
There's still judgment,
or whatever. I don't know that that's the word I put on it, but it's just, I'm not at that spot until I start to shift into the softening point, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that's my pattern. And so I'm not sure what I was going to say there, but I don't know. Staying present. And see, my nose keeps flaring up again. I want to stay in the conversation, and if that, whatever that means, I want to stay in that. And I'm not going to stay home just because I might cry or just because I might snap or you know, maybe I'll have like this spontaneous happy eruption. That's not typically the one I'm worried about expressing in public. But I am at a point in my life where I'm not so worried about crying. I'm not worried about crying in public. I have cried in a lot of places in the last little while. And you know what? I know how uncomfortable old Bobbi used to feel if I like caught some of that, like eavesdropped or like was witnessing that in somebody else because of what it would like cause to happen in my body. And now it's like, I know that so many people could use that shift inside their body, that if me honoring me can give someone else the permission to even acknowledge the fact that they might need honoring somewhere, then I've not only honored myself, but I've given them a little sliver of something else. Which feels meaningful to me.
There is a reminder in that for me of, so I hear safety or lack of safety, which is the reason I did not embrace those things. Whatever you called feelings and emotions, like I was always accused of being too emotional my entire life. Oh, you're so emotional. Oh, grow a thicker skin. I think we've talked about this a million times. And one of the reframes that occurred for me was within the Wealth Systems Institute body of knowledge. And it was reframing emotions and feelings to energy and information. So I know that my body is a I know that I'm a quantum biological being. I know that this device that I wear is capable of breaking down what I would call energy and information. So every time I have a tear or a hiccup in my throat or a heat or water in the form of tears or peeing or pain or whatever those typical nominalizations are, I know that that is just an energy and information signal in my body. So if I soften my body by using my breath, my body will break that down, digest it the same as it does a banana. I don't tell my body to break a banana down. It just doesn't. My body is capable of breaking those down. And I think what happens is we attach meaning and ideas and stories and history to the feeling of anger or grief or sadness or tears or whatever it is. And then we shut it down. And intelligently, people, like, it's smart not to rage on your parents when you're 4, because you're probably going to get, beat. So that was really smart at some point in your life. But we weren't raised to trust. We weren't raised to feel safety inside as that moves. We were taught that it'll never end. I know so many women, I'm sure this is no different for you. I've met with so many women who are scared that when they start to cry, they're never going to stop. And what the hell changes anyways? Well, nothing changes. If you don't have a new piece of information, nothing changes. So I think what you and I have access to in the form of knowledge is that we're not scared of what we would have called anxiety or fear or anger, or we recognize them as triggers inside of a physical body. It's a gateway for something different. I'm totally safe here. Maybe I'm not safe in the Safeway line to start bawling my eyes out. So maybe I go to my car and I soften my belly, I relax my shoulders, and I make space for it. Try it on in a little form. Hide yourself in the bathroom in your house. And just soften your body. Because it will all fall apart. It will all soften. And your life will change.
It will end.
And it cannot be worse than what it is now.
Amen. And it will end when it's done.
Yeah.
So I've often referred to the time I ugly cried for 10 days. And I can tell you, the days that I was judging myself and being mean to myself were far worse than the ones I softened my belly and just let it go. And while you were saying that, I was thinking in terms of like the ugly cry, and give it a whirl. Cry until you're done. Give yourself the freedom to cry until you're done. And I think of it in terms of puking or pooping. It generally stops when you're done. So do it. Stay with it. Ride the wave, because in my experience, it always comes in waves. And you can see, other people can see the wave and the release. You were part of my healing journey a couple weeks ago, and when I when I was building into whatever, like the fear, the ugly cry, the intensity. Thank you. It, like, you could see. And then like the peak, and then the letting go, and the softening, and I could feel even in that the shift and where it would start to come down in my breath. And it was just like birthing. We talked about how it was just like the contractions of birthing, and all you have to do is stay present to the experience.
You don't have to do anything other than breathe and soften your body. And that takes trust. So pick your company wise. If you're sitting there in your household or in a group of women and you're allowing your body to be soft, and this is moving and flowing, and they're trying to shove tissue up your nose, and they're trying to distract you, maybe not the best company. No matter how well intentioned that is, I don't believe that's done with malice. Pick your company wisely.
Or at least be able to say for yourself, I need to move this. So you're either going to bear witness to it, or you're going to piss off for a little while so I can do this.
Yeah, absolutely. I need a biohazard break.
Does that mean you have to pee?
It does.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure why that's what I chose to say. I figured it was politer on the radio.
Oh.
Anyways, I'm going to step out for a minute, so do what you need to do.
I love that. Biohazard break. Yeah. So, for those of you who have stopped by and who are still listening, and those of you watching the replay, I invite you to get really curious about what comes up for you while watching this video. What symptoms do you recognize as like energy and information flowing through your body, and the places and spaces that you've used certain coping skills to, in their brilliance, and what that looks like. Yeah. I am always humbled when I bring it back and I recognize all the support that I actually have inside of me, and the ways I'm constantly guiding myself and accepting guidance and staying open to guidance, and staying present to the experience, and then recognizing where I've gotten lost in the story and getting back on track, and moment to moment, the sheer, I don't know, brilliance of it all. Yeah. So we had been talking about communication, and I would like to point out my the shift in communication in my world for me is not it's not the way it was, and it's not the way that it was modeled to me. So I try and have conversations where I stay fully present to what's being said, and let that be where that lies. So the way that it happens with Mandy and I, she'll say something, and so I try and respond to what moved in me while she was speaking, as opposed to giving her my opinion on whatever she's thinking about, or fixing her. Or I'm talking about communication and the ways in which I choose to communicate these days being completely different than the ways communication was modeled to me. And so if I present with, oh, there's all this energy and information moving through my body, and you respond with, oh yeah, you need to go to the gym and stop eating peanuts, and I am like, thanks, thank you for your opinion. And just the fact that my choice in communication these days is to stay present to what's being said to me, and if I do respond to that particular whatever, I try and respond to what's moving through me, not the ways in which it should move through you, or the ways in which you could change the way it moves through you, or anything in that regard. And I'm very aware in saying this, the people in relationships, I really make a conscious, intentional effort to stay present, and then the conversations I kind of gloss over. And so I'm going to sit with that for my day and see what that is telling me inside of my body. I have some judgments about what that might be telling me inside of my body. But
and often there's indicators of what you'd actually rather be doing if you can't stay and stay. I'll say to my kids now, they'll be like, rah, 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 telling me something. I'm like, I really want to hear what it is you want me to hear, but I can't be present right now because of ABC. Just give me 4 minutes and I will be there for you. Because it's so disrespectful for me now inside of myself to not fully be where I'm at. And I recognize when I'm not and when I'm half-assed doing it. And so, yeah.
I set my adult son to the task of actually calling me on my auto response. So when you recognize it, just say, hey, you're auto responding, or whatever.
Yeah. Are you in there? Hello?
Yeah. Because I don't choose that moving forward. And it's such an auto response that it's autopilot, and I shift into whatever I'm doing. I think I gave the example last week of how I thought I had, and I don't know if this was a conversation on air or not, but I had thought I had dutifully done my mother duty and had a nice connection. He was eating, I was doing the dishes, and I was like off to do my yoga, and he's like, so you're not going to spend any time with me? And I was like, what are you talking about? We just like hung out. He's like, you spent the whole time with your back to me doing the dishes. I'm like, oh, there's that perception, people. And just that recognition. So I sat down with him and I had a conversation about how my perception of it was, I was a great mother. I just checked in, I did all this, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, no, you didn't actually hit that mark inside of my body. And I was like, great, good to know. Yeah, so, and there is definitely times I recognize that he most certainly wouldn't. So the amount of times I've walked away thinking,
you've been the mother of the year, and he's like, what a sucky mother.
True story.
This is the other piece. I don't know if we're wrapping it up or what we're doing, but this is the other piece for me is the recognition in the last 7 years that my children have had an experience of me. And my children have had an experience of me parenting and mothering. I can't change that. Nobody can change that. I'm not sure that I would want to or any of those other things, but nobody is spared this cultural conditioning. Nobody is spared the brunt of their parents' history. Nobody. No matter how well-intentioned your parents are, they passed on things to you, and some of them you go, no, not that, and other ones you think are glorious. But a lot of it is habituated and ingrained, and I would argue that almost none of it is mindful and intentional. So this is actually not where I was going when I opened my mouth, but back to your situation with your son, it's because it's so autopiloted, because parenting is so automatic and ingrained and habitual and we give no thought to it, we multitask and do 10 things, or we, whatever it is that we do. So reclaiming this concept of parenting, or how I engage, because it's just a relationship with my children, not children, it's a relationship with Bauer, Brooklyn, and Aspen, and Mandy, and how we weave that together, mindfully. So reframing that for me has allowed me to take away some of the roles and responsibilities, and then hopefully see where I'm still sleeping, where I'm still can we play? No, it doesn't even matter what they said, because I thought they were going to say electronics, and the answer is no. Like, how often does that happen for me, right? There was something else in that, but you have to be willing to see that. Oh, so nobody's spared that. So here's a news flash. All your kids are going to need therapy as a result of something you've done. I don't think anybody's spared, because I know people who have grown up in households that they were sexually abused, there was drug use and violence, and the kids, quote unquote, turned out perfectly fine. And other families that were the model, mom and dad stay together, the garage and the whole, like, whatever that dream is. And their kids are addicted to drugs on the street and prostituting. So there's no, just because we've parented one way or another, I've had to really come to know that my kids may or may not have manners. My kids may or may not be in jail. My kids may or may not be addicted to substances, and I can't change or shift that. All I can do is be me and do me and be present and hold space in a mindful, meaningful, intentional way for them. And that's a total reshift. That is not how I was raised. That is not what has been modeled to me. That is the opposite of what is modeled. So what's been in my awareness the last few weeks is this concept of crying it out and tough love with babies. So last night I saw another article that talks about how you should never let your babies cry it out because it causes so much stress and trauma inside of their little devices. And I had tears instantly again at the kitchen table and saying to my partner, I did that. I believed in it. Somebody told me it's what you did, and I did it. And then I recognized I did it because somebody told me to, not because it was meaningful, not because it felt right. Because I'll tell you, sitting and listening to your baby, quote unquote, cry it out is torturous. I did it because I was overwhelmed and at the end of my rope, and I didn't have a partner who was involved in that piece of it, and I didn't want to shake my babies, so I let them cry it out. And that is the absolute truth of it. It wasn't a mindful choice. And so that, as an example of, you know, where I deferred to somebody or some theory outside of me to fix the problem of the baby crying, I was never offered a different perspective. And it was automatic. And my mom let me cry it out, I'm sure, and her mom let her cry it out. And we automatically go through these ways of being, and we don't even question them. So look around your world, look at what you're saying and doing and being, and is it in alignment with who you are and who you're becoming? Does it feel right to engage with your children while you're running your to-do list or whatever it looks like for you, because it's different from person to person. But for me, it is more meaningful to live in alignment with myself and be present than it is to, I don't even know what that served. To just like do things automatically. I'm not actually sure. Maybe we think it's easier. It is not.
I have many things to say to that. So remind me, I want to come back to multitasking. I feel like this is a good opportunity to put in the disclaimer that these are the opinions of Bobbi and Mandy in this moment, and we reserve the right to change those opinions as often as we want to. But this is not the opinion of Jess FM or anyone else necessarily at Jess FM. And so my hour has come to a close on Jess FM, and I'm not closing. So if you have to run, just know that you were listening to Journey to Self with a special clip from Magic Monday. So this is Mandy and Bobbi on Magic Monday. You can find Mandy. Where can we find you?
At Soulfully Soil on Facebook, Instagram, website. You can find me through the Lethbridge Sustainable Living Association. So
perfect. And you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and my website at Goddess Inclusive. Yeah, so if you're on Just FM and you have to run, well,
thanks for joining us.
Yeah. I like how we both... So clearly someone just talked to us on
That's amazing.
Facebook Live, and so we both leaned in a little closer.
Yeah, it's distracting. Do you want to finish where you were going with that? Because I want to address that when you're done.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my disclaimer, and that's where to find us. And we're not done yet because we're still magical on Monday. And multitasking, and for me, it falls in line with our busy status. So there is a status to how much you can multitask as a mother, and how many things you can get done at the same time, and how clean your house can be, and how
much you can endure.
Yeah, exactly. How much you can endure, for sure. And how many little soul suckers you can be in servitude to. and
we bring that on ourselves.
Yeah, and still get up in the morning and keep doing it. And you
gotta look pretty too.
Yes. And so, yeah, I realized somewhere in my mat leave with my second son, I didn't get mat leave with my first son. I don't get mat leave in high school. Weird.
You don't?
But anyway, that's a side note. The only other woman I knew on like mat leave with children said something about how she had like a task for every day and like mopping her floor. And for a while I subscribed to that. I'm like, oh, I should have a task every day. I should mop my floor. And then I was like, I don't care if my floor is mopped every day. That I still don't care if my floor is mopped every day. That's just not my thing. But the realization that there we all are in our castles, completely segregated, all doing the same thing, multitasking our lives away in servitude or whatever that looks like. That's what it felt like to me. And I don't want that.
No.
I don't want that, period.
Well, and I feel like we've had the busy conversation, or I certainly have in a variety of ways. It was a distraction for me. It meant more things I could pile on my plate, the less I had to look at myself. And the irony is then I get to self-loathe and hate myself because I could never achieve all the things that I was expecting out of myself. Nor would I even go there to speak of it. I just knew that I was burning out and overwhelmed.
Yeah.
There was a comment on Facebook Live here about feeling an impulse. What I hear is feeling an impulse. I know something in my gut to be true, and my brain talks me out of it. Your brain is not your friend. Your brain can only do plus or minus 7 items at a time. Plus or minus 3. Sorry. Can only do 7 plus or minus 3 more or less items at a time. That's all our brain is capable of. But if we allow our device to break down and digest and soften, and we touch base inside in that way, it can do like 7 trillion cellular interactions per second. Seems like a far superior way to live your life than relying on your brain. My brain can tell me stories and talk me into or out of absolutely everything. And where my trust has come from is from engaging and listening for that impulse, that intuition, that instinct, that which is me, the essence of who I am, and starting to listen for that. And every single time without fail, when I listen to that and I make a choice from that, no matter how scary, no matter how difficult, no matter how my brain can tell me I'm going to collapse and fall and burn to the ground, it always works out. It never not works out. It's never actually happened. When I have an impulse and I follow it, it takes me exactly where I need to. And my brain's stories about the fear and the, oh my gosh, what about this, and wouldas and shouldas and couldas, and it doesn't, it's just your brain being scared that you're going to change the pattern of your thinking, and then it won't be able to calibrate for it anymore. Nice. So, the only thing I can trust is my gut. The only thing I can trust is my impulse, because that is the language of who I am. The essence of who I am speaks in subtle yes, no, left, right, stop, stay, not now. The essence of who I am doesn't say, well, you know, if you do this, then blah, 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 and if you do that, then blah, blah, and this is going to happen. And that is your brain. That is not your impulse. Impulse is simple. You get in a car, you're driving with a bunch of teenagers, and I don't know why teenagers, that's a silly story, but you get in a car, you're driving along, all of a sudden you have this stop impulse. You have a choice to stop or not. Maybe you continue and you get in a car accident. Maybe you continue and you get kidnapped. I don't know. But listen to the impulse. It's simple and it's clear.
And all of that sent me digging in Mandy's bag for a book I knew I would find.
How did you know that was going to be there?
Because we are reading Belonging. And before creativity can take its first breath, the rational voice frightens it away with its impulse to homogenize things until they're drained of mystery. You will know this strangling influence by its automatic quality. It is the invalidation that rears up the moment we step outside the line, questioning our legitimacy, scrutinizing our every note and movement, holding us to a deadening and unreachable perfection. It tells us we're too woo-woo and dismisses our feelings as sentimental, our dreams as illusory? Illusory. I don't know. Our ideas as unoriginal. Period. Boom. Tokapa. Belonging.
So the moment you step out of what your brain has known you to be, it's going to go da 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 and tell you all the scariest stories possible. I don't live in comfort all the time. I didn't choose to leave my $100,000 a year job with like a, easy peasy. It was easy peasy. The moment I allowed myself to know that voice inside of me was louder than the fear to stay, I made the choice and boom, everything shifted. Like I could give you 100 examples in my own life where I've listened to that and where it's just been simple. It's always ease and flow, but it isn't always comfortable because I can't map to it. I don't know where it's taking me. Sure, I'll do a radio show. That feels really meaningful, and that's an impulse. That's a yes. Where is it going to take us? I have no idea.
And I know for me, when I left, it was like ease and flow, but not in like sunshine and rainbows. And I was watching the beginning of Kundalini on Gaia and people's different experiences of their Kundalini energy being awakened. And for some people, it sounds like such a horrific event. Like some people's explanation of it, I wouldn't want that to ever happen to me, ever, 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 ever. And then with the recognition that that does happen to me quite often. And it's messy and it's beautiful. And on this side of it, I would never go back. But again, it's your perception. It's your ease and your flow. Your unlocking, your willingness to stay in the process and know that it's for a reason. And for me, the second I relax and let go, stop running those programs, because I will tell myself, yeah, I'm relaxed, I'm letting go. And, it's not until the next level actually lets go that I'm like, oh. I was still holding to that. And so in this moment, in these last few weeks, I'm so aware of those apps and those programs and where they're still sneakily holding on and where it's served me and where it's no longer serving me, and just adjusting to it and not necessarily trying to fix it, recognizing those apps are running, consciously closing some down when I need to close them down, consciously crawling into that app back there and being like, what up?
Yeah.
What's going on? How can I help you? Because you're really starting to suck out my soul and aggravate me in different ways that I know I can no longer ignore you. And I don't choose to, so let's deal with this because I'm moving on now in this moment. And yeah.
That feels like a wrap-up for me.
Yeah, it felt like that last, and now I'm like,
Thanks for sticking around, Jess FM. And those of you on Facebook Live. This is Magic Mondays. I think we're going to create a page so that you can follow it and listen to our ramblings. Or not.
Yeah. I'd like to take this moment to do a shameless plug about where you can find me this evening. I have some openings. I do transformational healing, and I have office space at a Naturista's. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram and through my website, or email me at goddessinclusive@gmail.com to set up an appointment. There's a red tent on April 15th. It's going to be a group healing. And do you have anything coming up?
I have lots, but I could talk for 5 minutes about what's going on. So you can find me at Soulfully Soil. The events are always there, so on Facebook and Instagram.
Perfect. Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Have a meaningful, magical Monday, whatever that is to you, and your perception of meaningful and or magical is completely yours and yours alone. So good luck with that. Have a good one. Brilliant. This is a lot to turn off.